Hello and welcome to PRSay. This is the official award-winning podcast of the Houston chapter of Public Relations Society of America. And I'm your host, Veronica Sofer. I have the pleasure of introducing you to some of our amazing members here in our Houston chapter. And this is our opportunity to connect and get to know each other, talk about trends that are happening in communications here in the Houston area, and really learn and grow from each other. So we will go ahead and get this episode kicked off. I've got two great guests, but before we do that, I want to make sure I take care of some housekeeping. So if you are listening on the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. We don't want you to miss any episodes of PRSay. And if you are watching on YouTube or Facebook, drop us some comments so my guest and I can be sure to circle back with you. So with that, I'm going to invite Melissa and Hailey from CAMS onto the show. Welcome to PRSay.
Hi, Veronica. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Likewise, I'm so glad to meet you guys. Okay, so we have Hailey Boy and Melissa Kinsella from CAMS joining us. And so, ladies, I'm very excited about today's conversation. I love when we have teams that can join us and talk about the work that you guys do together. But before you guys dive into what you do at CAMS, tell us a little bit about how you got into communications and specifically energy.
Okay, I'll go first.
Yeah, I'll let Melissa start.
So I don't have your typical pathway. I'm kind of unique in that manner. My background, I've been in the workforce, I'd say, since for almost 30 years. And it's, constantly evolving, but my background has always been project management, administrative, and government, ironically. And then when I moved to Houston, I realized that, it's one of those, you're either, as far as a career choice, you're either, in the medical industry, you're an attorney, or you're in the energy industry.
Mm-hmm. True. Very true.
So that's kind of how my career started in the energy industry. Is I moved here 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And my first company that I worked for was an energy related company. And basically that evolved into the role that I currently have. And so just every role that I've had since I've moved to Houston has been unique in its own way. I kind of wear many hats. In my current role, I actually do administrative aspect, but also the marketing communications aspect. And it was a very unique opportunity, and I was very drawn to it when they proposed it to me. So
that's exciting. Yeah, I love it. It's definitely not traditional. So but our members come from all walks and all spaces and all sectors. So that's very cool. And Hailey, what about you? How'd you get started in the business?
So my story is kind of long, but I'm going to keep it shorter because so I was born in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. So originally come from Vietnam. For my parents back then, and like the usual stigma, it's either going to be accounting or medical, and between those two for me. But then I kind of stood my ground, and then I said, no, I kind of like, like business administration. I'm not sure what kind of part of marketing I like yet, but then kind of like growing up, I realized that I want to do advertising. So I got a chance to come to the United States and study, and graduated from U of H in advertising. Mm-hmm. That's when I started to work with different marketing agency, and I started with B2B industry. So mm-hmm. I have a lot of different clients in different backgrounds in terms of like construction, manufacturing, and I started there. I did F&B for a while, but then I kind of like B2B a lot. Mm-hmm. And then that when COVID hit, and then I started my graduate school journey. And then after I graduated, I found CAMS. And then I started working with Melissa, which is, I think Melissa is so much more amazing than what she told other people to be. Because she's like one of the people who you can count on in like emergency. Like this woman technically got stuck in an elevator, and then she legit just said like, you know what? I know people from the building that can get us out because the button was not working. And that's how she saved, like, technically the whole entire HR department was in the military. So I was like, Melissa, like, this company would not be running like
Literally, would not
yeah,
be ready.
literally.
I do pretty well under pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, definitely, and I love that story because there we all need people like that on our teams, especially in the marketing and comms space, because there's all kinds of stuff that comes to us. So tell us a little bit about what you guys do at CAMS. What's the structure? I know that and we've had a lot of guests from the medical space and even some tech, and so it's structured a little bit differently. But for those of us that are not in energy, what's a typical, and how are you guys set up with like the marketing, PR, advertising, any stakeholder relations? How does that work in your shop?
Sure. So I'll start and I'll let Hailey finish. Just to give everyone a background, CAMS is a privately owned company, and we do asset management services. And the way I explain it to most people who've never heard of us, basically we oversee assets that, a lot of large PE firms will want, are interested in purchasing, say, a power plant.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't necessarily want to do the day-to-day operations or, manage the employees. So essentially they would hire us to come in, and we would manage not only the facility, but those employees become our employees. And so it's unique in that manner. And it's, we actually have a role in not only just power plants, but battery, any type of renewable. So we also have a 24/7, it's a remote operations center. So we're unique in that we offer a lot of different, services.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as Hailey and I's role, it's constantly evolving. There's not one day that's similar.
Yeah.
Some days it's more chaotic than the other. But generally speaking, I would say that a lot of our focus are on, pitching to potential clients, current clients, as far as, our role would be creating PowerPoint presentations for the business unit lead, or creating, email blasts if some of our employees are planning to attend a conference, press releases, do a lot of social media posts just to promote CAMS in general. And that's kind of the, very superficial level. And I'll let Hailey talk more of her specific role and responsibility.
So I would say most of what we do in terms of like communication and marketing, we try to kind of like maintain branding for CAMS to external and internal stakeholders as well.
Mm-hmm.
So either that is gonna be a marketing campaign on a search ad, or is it gonna be something that we push out on social media? Melissa usually deal mostly with the press releases and media relation aspect of our company. I am more kind of like a creative direction, where I deal with a lot of like designing, creating the materials for the company to either portray our CAM services, since I think CAM services is, like they said, our greatest assets is like our people. So we offer a lot of niche and like various services in terms of like energy operations and facility. So it's kind of like you have to find like the perfect space in between of like promoting the company services, but also figure out what your target audience kind of like listening to and want in terms of like where are they heading to, conference wise, webinars, kind of like what the people in the industry are looking for, or our target audience are looking at. Yeah.
And we don't have one specific target audience because we do offer so many different services. Like HR, our HR group, we actually do a recruiting. We have a service called Staffing Solutions, where some of our recruiters will provide that as a service to a client, a current client, or a potential client. We also do environmental consulting. We have an asset management service. We have a midstream service. So we're very unique in that manner. So our target audience is constantly changing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And do you have to be mindful of what's happening in the community? Are there external factors that really play into what's happening? I know, people talk about, global type energy issues or local issues, but is in your role, do you have to also get down to that micro level, or do you guys really work at that big macro level when it comes to those kinds of big issues?
Sure. I'd say both. We do have a lot of facilities throughout the U.S., and we have to be very cognizant of, there's potential for, some type of, God forbid, a crisis at one of the power plants, excuse me. So it changes. So I would definitely say both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in terms of like from what I'm seeing, we try to keep up with the energy trends happening in the market. So for example, we are in kind of like a current transitions to like renewables energy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
and that is where kind of like the company also wanted to focus on this year, is to expand the group that we currently have.
Mhm.
The amazing folks that they currently dealing with, like, solar, wind, kind of like facility, and to kind of like emphasize the service on that end. Or sometime me and Melissa have to work on kind of like what can we bring to the table in terms of like exposure for the group, so that maybe they can go to kind of like this and that conference and speak at those conferences, or we have to apply for like the industry awards to
Right.
showcase our abilities or our achievement. Or recently, I think like one of our remote operation center, they did kind of like a very good case study in terms of like where they were able to manage kind of like zero downtime for one of the facility with completely remotely, with just our people power. So we thought that would be like a very like one of the interesting case study to bring out to like the audience.
And
So
that focuses on, there was zero downtime for
Mhm.
48 hours with the remote operations center with this current freeze that Houston had.
Sure.
So that's something that we're very proud of. And another thing to add on to what Hailey had already said is there's a huge focus in our company for the ESG initiative. It's the environmental social governance, and we implemented it a few years ago, and we currently do a quarterly newsletter and an annual report. So there's a lot of focus on community aspect, volunteering, donations, and so forth. But there's also, a larger scale that we, focus on environmentally and the governance. So.
Yeah, and that's strategic. And how do you strategically put that into your daily workload? Because you're right, you have to be considerate. I like, Hailey, how you talked about the different stakeholders. I mean, there's stakeholders at all levels, but you also have to maintain your brand identity, and you also have to make sure that you're aligned to your strategic goals and initiatives. How do you guys make sure that that happens, at least in the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis? Because my guess is that's a lot more complicated than it might be for maybe a tech company or a medical company, or maybe even a governmental entity.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's constantly, and I can speak for myself, it's constantly in the back of my mind, just, because we've worked really hard in the last few years to ensure that we have the same, message being conveyed in all of our, online presence, or, any type of presentations that we create. It's always in the back of our mind to ensure that we're, adhering to those because we have worked very hard in getting to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's exciting. And I'm so glad you guys can work together as a team and doing all of that. Do you have a larger team, or are you a 2-person shop? How are you set up?
We technically have another individual. However, he's finishing up his degree, so he's only here part-time.
Gotcha.
But,
Gotcha.
for the most
Well,
part, it is.
yeah, well, it sounds like you guys do a lot for a small team. So what a mighty hefty lift. Well, ladies, I've enjoyed talking to you and learning about what you're doing over at CAMS. I'm fascinated by how you guys can incorporate the marketing and advertising aspects into your role there, especially in the energy space. So Melissa and Hailey, how can people connect with you? We know that we've got in-person events for our members, but not everybody can get to them all the time. So if people want to connect with you, how can they do that?
You can go ahead.
Oh, so I am currently a member of PRSA, so you will probably see me at some or most of the event of PRSA this year. And I'm trying to drag Melissa whenever I can.
Great.
But yeah, if I'm more than willing to connect with people, with like young professional out there who have like the similar background to me, or just simply for the purpose of connecting. I am on LinkedIn under the name Hailey Boy, so you can find me on there.
Great. And we'll make sure the link is in the show notes for sure. What about you, Melissa?
And one of my goals this year is to attend more meetings in the future. We attended one at the end of the year in 2023. So that's one of the goals, is to be, more of a, in-person role versus more so, online. So I'm open to anything. my email, phone number, and or LinkedIn is perfectly fine with me as well.
Great. That's awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing you guys at more events. I'm so glad we had an opportunity to talk. I love learning new things that are happening with our members, especially in the Houston area. And I just appreciate your time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
This was great. Yes.
Yeah.
You bet. You bet. All right. With that, we're going to wrap up this episode of PRSay, the award-winning podcast for the Houston chapter of Public Relations Society of America. I am your host and sponsor, Veronica Sofer, and I'm glad we all got an opportunity to talk to Hailey and Melissa over at CAMS. So be sure to check them out. Their contact information is in the show notes. If you are listening on the podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. And if you are watching on YouTube or Facebook, drop us some comments so we can connect. And with that, we will see you